of the Committee of the Whole. It is 9 o'clock. I'll ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll.
Wagner.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
Deuter.
Here.
Sabatino, absent. Leader.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Polumsky.
Here.
York, absent. Toledo.
Here.
Healy.
Present.
Levin.
Also present.
Kennedy.
Here.
Conquest.
Here.
12 present, 2 absent.
12 present, 2 absent. We have a quorum. We are in session. On to announcements. Any announcements? I have an announcement. Let's get through this as expeditiously as possible this evening. Same charge as always, Mr. Grabowski. Agenda item 3, public, Alderman Polumsky.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this was noted earlier in the process, but I think it's important enough to review again, and that is the purpose of this budget discussion, review, and approval process is so we can develop a planning document. It does not require us to spend the amount of money that's listed. There are times we have to spend over. There are times that hopefully we can spend less than. But we've learned from past years that there are times where we allocate funds for an item, let's say, for example, the electronic sign that was earmarked for the underpass that had never even gotten to committee. So I think it's important for us to know, while we know we're not discussing details, we're trying to develop a planning document. And so I just thought it's important to note that as we continue these discussions.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Polumsky. Any other announcements? No. Clerk Spencer, on to public comments. Clerk Spencer, has anybody signed up for public comments?
Yes, Mayor. Claude Pagash, 566 West Gladys.
Okay, before you start, Mr. Prakash, we're going to use the same guidelines as last meeting. I think you're the only one in the audience who's speaking, so I'm not going to repeat all of it, but looking forward to your 3 minutes, and the microphone's yours.
Budget time. Been listening to the budget. There's a failure in it. People come in, thank you for the money you're giving them. What they don't, nobody asks, and nobody states, is what their budget was last year, what they want for their budget this year, and why. Couple things. Police department wants $500,000 for a new heating system. Wants an architect to redesign the lobby. A couple of weeks ago, the city rejected the straightening out of the columns at the police building. So why would I put $500,000 in a heating system and redesign the lobby if the structural columns in the building are leaning? Why not, right? Offhandedly, the city says it has one building inspector. I admire the gentleman. He's got a degree in structural engineering. He's got a degree in electrical engineering. He's got a degree in mechanical engineering. He's probably licensed. And he had to visit 105 projects. But he doesn't have 365 days to use it. I can only hope that the planning department, that all the individuals down there are licensed engineers. Even an architect in this state has to have a license because his drawings have to be stamped. Yes, indeed. Everybody comes in and says, we're grateful to the council to give us the money. Nobody says what their budget was and what they want from the budget. People listen to this. There's no comment from an alderman on anything. But you guys are wonderful. We're willing to give you the money. But they don't know what these bodies had last year. They don't know what the increase is. And there isn't anybody that's willing to make a public statement on it. I do know that the budget supposedly is $110 million. What was it last year? You got the books, you got the paperwork. I've heard aldermen say, I gotta go back to the public to let them know why I voted. Do you? Because you sure don't represent them up here.
Mr. Pagash, I'd ask you to wrap up your comments.
So in the future, let the public know what was and what these people expect.
Anyone else, Clerk Spencer?
No one else, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Kopp, you good? Okay, no additional comments. Anyone else in the audience who has not had an opportunity to sign up? It's going to close public comment for this evening. On to business before the committee. Continued review of our fiscal 2017 budget. City Manager Grabowski, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Before we get started, do you anticipate we will conclude what I'll call our initial run-through of the budget this evening?
It was our anticipation of that. I think we'll see how the evening unfolds as far as getting through the remainder of the items. Certainly, we'd like to get through the A, B, and C this evening. We do have Mr. Storino here, and Cassandra Schruff is here for visitor and tourism. So if we could get through those, I would hope that we can, and we'll see where we go from there. We had anticipated circle backs at the next meeting on the 28th. Again, we'll just see how we can do this evening.
Okay.
With that, I'll turn it over to City Attorney Storino to talk about the legal budget.
Thank you. Thanks. As I've said, the last 7+ years that I've been here, I'm honored to serve this council and honored to serve the citizens of Elmhurst. Our budget is principally reactive. We're project-driven, issue-driven. As things come up in the city that require the attention of our staff, whether it be labor, TIF, development, stormwater remediation, ending SSA districts, just to mention a few things that have occurred during the past year in the city. We react to those things. It's difficult to project an estimate of what we would have done in 2016 or what might happen in 2017. We do the best we can to try to anticipate those things, but it's very difficult to do so, particularly in the area of any litigation, because we really don't know when that's coming. So I'm pleased to try to answer any questions that the council may have. As the council knows, we do the middle items in the budget. We do not do the DUI prosecution. We do not provide prosecuting attorney services. We principally provide the labor and the line item indicating legal fees and additional counsel, which actually includes us and any other counsel that might be required by the city. And during the past year in 2016, we have in fact utilized other special counsel other than Storino, Romello, and Durkin, admittedly on a very limited basis.
Okay, any questions or comments for City Attorney Storino? Alderman Levin.
Thank you. I will second what you say about the unpredictability of the budgets, and I just wanted to say that as an attorney, I think that we've been very well served by your firm. We keep a close eye on the budget anyway, and we'll keep a close eye on what you spend, but it's been high-quality legal services and responsive, and personally I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks, Alderman.
Any other comments? Before we let you go, Mr. Storino, I would echo what Alderman Levin said. I think you folks do a great job for the city. I think the fact that there's not a lot of questions or comments up here reflects that you do a very thorough job. I appreciate your continued counsel. Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you, Don. I'll excuse you for the evening, and I'll ask Mike Kopp to join me at the table. While we're making that transition, I'll just comment on one thing that Attorney Storino said. He said that they are reactive. And it's interesting because, as you know, staff and the council here are very proactive in making things happen. And so Don's reactive is usually to us saying, hey, Don, how do we do this? And as the aldermen have said, we do appreciate all the members of Don's firm who help us through all the development that you see and other situations that we encounter. So thank you, Don. Next is visitor and tourism, which starts on page 164. So with that, I'll turn it over to Assistant Manager Cobb.
All right, the visitor and tourism, a lot of exciting stuff happened in 2016, hoping more into 2017, along with the guidance of Communication Manager Cassandra Schreff. In the spring of 2016, we launched and revitalized the Explore Elmhurst website and the marketing campaign. The campaign had several components, all supporting the mission of driving economic growth and quality of life through tourism and destination marketing, including the free Explore Elmhurst trolley. And the launch of the campaign can be credited to the city's promotional efforts, but most importantly, the cooperation and collaboration and support of our community partners. The Visitor and Tourism Advisory Group, which we're named the Explore Elmhurst Advisory Group, continues to meet on a monthly basis with our community partners, and they've been a really important part of providing input and added value to Explore Elmhurst. Also in partnership with Elmhurst College, the college communications capstone students are currently working on a plan of suggested enhancements to Explore Elmhurst marketing campaign, and we're going to get a presentation from those students on December 7th to see what kind of ideas they've come up with to make it even a better program. Also, in 2016, on the trolley, we had 11,500 riders, over twice what we had the year prior to it. The Explore Elmhurst website, 16,368 unique visits, not only from Elmhurst residents, from the surrounding suburbs also. The Explore Elmhurst social media page had a 17% increase during that 3 months of the trolley. And also the city's communication manager is leading the community grant process with several new components this year, including a restructured grant application process, an expanded committee review team, and a community grant workshop where the grant applicants will actually come in and do a 10-minute presentation on their use of that grant money for their agency. The city's new Explore Elmhurst community grant provides funding for local events and cultural activities that promote attracting local tourism, visitors, and overnight residents to the city of Elmhurst. The provisions of this funds will assist qualified organizations with the promotion of activities that directly attract local tourism to Elmhurst, create a positive image, and build positive publicity for the city of Elmhurst. And any questions? I mean, hold on a second before you have any questions. I'll answer some for you. Budget line 3098 is the Explore Elmhurst trolley. And what we did, we funded slightly a little bit more than we did last year because we want to do a couple of promotional events. For instance, one is the St. Patrick's Day Parade, so I had to have the trolley out there with the elected officials and publicize the trolley program that's going to be coming up, in a couple of months after the St. Patrick's Day Parade. Also in line item 6007, it's additional funding for the city center holiday lighting. And then 6098 reflects the city funding assistance for special service provided by the city center, which is something that the Finance Committee's been discussing the last couple months.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Alderman Healy?
Thank you, Mayor. Specific to the trolley, and we talked about this briefly at committee, I don't think there's anybody at this point that would say the trolley experience hasn't been a large success. And certainly with Cassandra's leadership, it took a big step this year. Ridership was up, awareness was up, everything was up. I think we've established, at least in my mind, we've established that this is it's a service that the citizens of Elmhurst they use it. We've seen some correlation, and it's a loose correlation, granted, that there's some residual benefit to the businesses in town. But I realize I'm kind of going out on a limb on a little bit on that. There's a lot of factors in that. But where I'm going with this is, are we at a point where we think we want to expand this to either adding a second loop, adding a second trolley, and budgeting accordingly? What is staff's perspective on that?
We've discussed it a number of times, and it was, as far as expanding it, we think the half-hour loop's a pretty good loop as far as going through the 3 central business district, Spring Road and the York and Vallette district. And it becomes, the difficulty is if you expand it outside those 3 areas at this point, is where do you expand it to? Does it become just a pickup and bring them to these locations, so you really need a trolley, or is it could be some other means? But where would those stops be? We're sort of internally discussing, what would you expand it to? You know, so at this point, we're just looking at with, like you said, the first year we tried it out for 6 weeks. We saw that people liked it. This last year, we really went out, marketed it. We got a lot of people to ride it. But there's still some tweaks we'd like to try to do just to the one we have right now.
So I'll officially make a request to make this a circle back, but, you know, I am reminded, and it was Alderman Wagner 3 years ago, as one of the leading proponents said, let's do it and find out what happens. And we did it, and we found out people liked it. So I would challenge staff to say, find a second loop. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, all right, we don't do it again, but we stay with what's successful. I believe that we're at a point in this program where expanding it makes sense. I love the idea of expanding it to special events, whether it's St. Patrick's Day or the Green Fest, or, you know, a couple of the other events we do at Art in the Park or some of the other. I love that idea, but I also think it's time, let's try a second loop somewhere else and see what happens. So when it comes to circle backs, that's something I think that we should discuss.
Okay. Alderman Leader.
I have a question for the city manager. It appears there is no provision in the budget for a grant to the American Legion. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. In that case, I wish to request a circle back to include up to $50,000 in the budget for the Legion to carry on its unique mission in Elmhurst. The details and any and all pertinent questions relating to this grant would be subject to the Public Affairs and Safety Committee's review and recommendation. This review and recommendation would then be subject to the full City Council's consideration. Thank you.
City Manager Grabowski, and I want to ask for clarification from Alderman Leader. City Manager Grabowski, the other expenses that were budgeted in 16 and estimated in 16 at 50,000, was that the line item that was added at the time for the Legion?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so, and just to clarify what Alderman Leader just asked and said, is even though there is an increase in that line item 75,000, that's already allocated to something else, is that correct?
That's the city center funding that the Finance Committee has been discussing.
Okay, so there's not 50,000 in there, so, Alderman Leader, I don't know if you made a motion. I'm not sure a motion's required tonight. So, I think everyone's clear on what your intent is when we get to the circle back?
I just made a request.
Okay.
Do you think I should?
No, I think it's appropriate. We've held off on formal motions and changing line items through this process, and I anticipate a bunch of them in the circle back world. So, city staff clear on what Alderman Leader is requesting?
Yes, we are.
Okay, Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mayor. Clarifying question. So the 50,000 that was in 2016 was for the Legion. The 75,000 is for City Center that is currently in committee, going to go to committee. How did the 75 get in the budget?
It's currently in committee.
And roughly, what do they want to spend the 75,000 on?
That is, we've been talking to the director of City Center and the board when the SSA discussion was happening, 6 and 7, and the drop-off of 7, excuse me. And then we started talking about the decorations and other services that the City Center provides and what they may have to cut, and maybe what's more of a citywide benefit in the City Center. So it's other services. There is some some holiday decorations in that, and plantings and snow removal.
Okay, so is it fair to call that 75,000 then a gap filler in the city center budget based on what happened with the elimination of SSA 7, I believe it was?
Yes, it would help to bring the service level up to what it once was.
So it's
For city
recouping the
center.
money they lost via the SSA.
Yes.
Alderman Mulliner?
Two things. One is, I just want to make sure that I understood that clearly. The 75,000 includes the holiday decorations. I see that as 6007 as holiday decorations for city
It's
center.
additional. It's the combination of the two for the city center. So some of it's holiday decoration, some of it's for the other physical services.
Okay. All right, and I wholeheartedly support Alderman Leader's circle back. I would like to make sure that we get back to a circle back on the 50,000 for the American Legion.
Other comments? Alderman Bram?
Thank you. I think it is a good thing to wait to speak last. Alderman Healy's request about the trolley as a circle back is a good one. I wholeheartedly support that. Alderman Leader's request for a circle back for American Legion, I support that. The one that's remaining on my list of questions is what has just been touched on. The dollars that we're now allocating to City Center, I'd like to make that as a circle back as well. I do understand the elimination of SSA number 7. I just like to have a thorough, deeper dive on what holes are needed to be filled, because it seems like it's ever increasing from year to year. Last year, I think it was last year, they couldn't afford, they stated, to do the holiday lights, and the city jumped in at the last minute to do the holiday lights, and now we have that in our budget. And then the 75,000 is Alderman Healy, to quote him, as a gap filler. So I think that definitely deserves a deeper dive.
Okay, circle back on the 75. Alderman Levin?
Maybe I'll be the last person to speak, but I would like to circle back on 6032 Community Grant Program. I want to have a look at, see if I can get a feel for how those funds are currently allocated, and in particular, taking a look at the level of support that our Chamber of Commerce receives from the city for the things that it does.
City Manager, does the Chamber get anything from the Community Grant Program right now?
No, I don't think the chamber directly.
Don't they receive for, like, parades or Veterans Day?
Yeah, but that's not the chamber. I know John Quigley is very involved in that, but that money goes directly to pay for expenses of the Memorial Day Parade. We do support the chamber in other ways with the visitor and tourism budget through advertising and other partnerships.
I'd still like to revisit that.
Alderman
Maybe
Toledo?
not that particular line, but on this budget. Thanks.
Yeah, we'll put together a list of any way that we interact with the chamber and support them.
Alderman Toledo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just since there were a number of questions on this topic during this budget discussion here, I would encourage any and all aldermen who are interested in the work that's been going on at the Finance Committee regarding City Center. There has been a report posted to our meeting for the past at least 2 meetings, a draft report. Please read it. Please reach out to anyone on the committee with any questions or suggestions as we get ready to potentially bring this to council in the near future. Thank you.
Good suggestion. Any other comments? All right, let's move on. City Manager Grabowski?
Thank you. We'll move on to administration, which is on page 107. A couple things I want to highlight in the administration budget under wages. I know over the last few years, you've seen us look at employment in a couple different ways. One of them has been to use contract employees where possible, and we have been doing that in the administrative office for a little while now, and so we've been able to reduce the budget under full-time wages, which reflects that contract employee versus a full-time employee. The other highlight that I have is under the communication side of it. Assistant Manager Kopp talked about Communication Manager Schreff, who's been doing an outstanding job for us on the V&T side, and now I'd like to talk a little bit about the communication side. Over the past year, we redesigned and launched the new website at elmhurst.org. I think Mike may have mentioned this, but the new site regularly receives about 43,000 monthly page views. The city's website is maintained by the administration team, led by the communications manager, and involves one key member from each of the city's departments. They meet quarterly to discuss any updates and more frequently when necessary to keep that refreshed. Along with that electronic communication, Cassandra has designed a new template for the city's monthly e-newsletter, and we would encourage anyone who's not signed up for that to go to elmhurst.org/e-newsletter and search, or just search the city newsletter and sign up. There's great information that comes out each month that's very helpful for the residents. Another partnership that she formed was an additional one, I should say, with Elmhurst College. Mike detailed one already, but another one that she's working on is another graduate research program where they're evaluating the citizen survey. Every other year when we've done that, and I think we talked about this last year, we seem to have just added to the survey, and it's gotten very lengthy, and we think that may be reflected in our response rate. So we talked about it and reached out to Larry Carroll at the college, and he put us in touch with that graduate research program, who are helping to evaluate and redesign the survey to make it more effective for the city in the future. Some of the goals for 2017 is to review and approve the strategic communications plan. That'll be going to the Public Affairs and Safety Committee in short order. And then also the investigation of the needs for new communications tools. I think we've done a good job of putting the word out electronically on social media and other mediums that we have, but we're always looking for the latest and greatest on that. So some of the tools that will be considered include a visitor's guide, more public service announcements, and even the possibility of a city annual report, and possibly in a calendar form or something like that, that we've seen good examples of. And then last, under the line item 3052, professional services, we're going to begin looking at the refresh and revitalization of the city's brand. We'd like to bring someone in to help us that's a branding expert. If you recall, the museum went through that last year, and so we think it's time for the city to look at that as well. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Alderman Bram.
Yes, in regards to that, in regards to the rebranding, what does that mean? I mean, I understand from a business or corporation standpoint, or even the Elmhurst History Museum from their standpoint, but rebranding of the city, or from a marketing aspect, what does rebranding mean in this circumstance?
This year, as we relaunched the website and the visitor and tourism side, we went with the Explore Elmhurst logo and really rebranded that area. And what we want is all departments to be consistent with how we put information, logos, all those type of things out there, so that people recognize when something's coming from the city, that it's easy to recognize, and we think it's just time for maybe a refresh at the logo as well.
Okay. All right. I thought we already have a city logo, being the tree and the emblem there, but okay. The other question I have is in regards to, and I think it's broken out throughout this page on 107, but it was attached to board docs, a separate document for the consultants that we have. I would like to make this a circle back, and I would like to understand what their roles are today and what their agreements state for those roles. I know one of the consultants was hired mainly for, I believe it was 75% museum and 25% economic development. Since that time, and I think it's been, I don't know, 7 to 10 years, if not longer, we have an economic development coordinator being Aaron Vanderwall. So I don't know if there's a need anymore for any of those hours to be allocated for economic development when our staffing has increased. And I think since then, we also now have Assistant City Manager Kopp from the initial hiring of that consultant. So we have 2 full-time people showing the attention. I don't know if we need a third consultant, even if it is only minimal time. And then I want to kind of discuss a little bit further in regards to the total hours for both consultants and how they're being utilized.
City Manager, what line item are the consultants under?
It's broken out into like 7, 8.
Ah, I gotcha.
Where is it?
I gotcha.
And they fall into a number of different budgets, actually. We had put out a table.
I got it,
Okay.
yeah. Okay. All right. Any other comments? Alderman Levin.
Thank you. City Manager, there was a reference to the decrease in wages. I think you said you replaced with contractual staff. Can you detail that a little bit in terms of how, where the shifts are from full-time employment to contractual staffing?
Where in the administration office?
Yes.
Yeah, we have 2.5 full-time equivalents in the manager's office. When Aaron moved to the economic development role, we filled that position with a contract employee. And so in this budget, we are essentially taking out the full-time benefits, insurance, and putting in wages for a contract employee, staffing.
And that staff, what does that person do? That's like a assistant in the office?
Administrative assistant in the office, correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, let's move on, City Manager.
Next, bring the page to 110 is the elected officials budget, which I don't believe has changed much at all. And then after that, if there's no questions on that, Board of Fire, oh, sorry, there's one question.
Oh, no, I was on the next one.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
When's the last time there was an adjustment to the elected officials' salaries?
It was Alderman Rebeletti who did it. And that would have been,
92 or so, or 2002?
I think it was 2001 or 2002, maybe.
Okay, just a point of reference.
We might be able to find that out before the end of the evening. If not, we'll have to come back to you on that one.
I can call Alderman Rebeletti if you want.
Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask that that be looked at on the circle back items, please.
He wants the,
What's the line item? 1002 on page 110.
is that for the elected officials?
Alderman Bram?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 108, we actually just talked about this tonight. I don't know if this is a miss or not. I thought we were a member of SOC, and I'm showing no line item for dollars for SOC, line item 6052.
We are we're members, but we're not paying a fee at this point.
If I could, actually, they're not assessing a fee right now, and they haven't for a number of years.
Okay.
There has been some talk at the SOC meetings that there could be a request for dues as they roll through this runway rotation plan. But they had a significant grant that was on their books that they're using for the consultants right now. And the other SOC members are helping to fund that alongside with that.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Let's move on.
Next is the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners.
Yeah, I mean, that's just for the hiring of the police and firefighters for the most part. The largest line item on there is a 3052, that's professional services, and the largest majority of that dollar is for the polygraphs as they go through the hiring process for both police and fire, which we think will run a test for both of them in 2017.
Alderman Bram?
1001 full-time wages, why is that going up?
Yeah, that's the allocation, yeah.
The Board of Fire and Police Commission is supported by the HR department, and so it's a split of wages among a number of employees. So any increase in just employee wages would be reflected in that.
So are we saying the police and fire commissioners are getting an increase?
No,
Or
they
just
don't.
the way it's
No, that's-
split between
that-
funds?
That's, right.
Go ahead,
It's
Tom.
just a different employee that's now allocated. The previous employee left the city, and so it's a different employee, so with a little higher wages.
Okay,
The BOFPC commissioners are voluntary. They're not paid.
that's what I thought, yeah.
Alderman Wagner?
I'm sorry, I stand corrected. They get $500 a year. Excuse me.
Oh, which is volunteer.
Alderman Wagner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Kopp, quick question of clarification on the professional services and the test. Now we're going to add the fire taking the polygraph test?
They always have.
They always have. We're adding it to the police?
No, it's just that that the largest amount of those dollars a polygraph costs us about $160 a test, and as we go through the list for both the police and fire, we're estimating almost 200 polygraphs probably this year between the hiring process of both. That's just one of the steps for both police and fire hiring. Polygraph is one of the steps after the written examination.
But I see 3052 going down, up in 17 a little bit, but going down for actual.
Right, but that sort of ebbs and flows as far as how many police officers we need to hire, how many firefighters we need to hire.
Okay.
The higher the number is, and it depends also on the, I guess, pass rate of the actual test that's given. There's a number of people that are on the list and how many people we go through before we get the number hired that we need to get hired.
Okay, I think I misunderstood you when you first said it, so thanks for clarifying.
Alderman Mulliner?
2 questions. In the past, have we done the polygraph in-house? That's question number 1. And question number 2 is, if the polygraph is not acceptable in a court of law, why are we using it to evaluate our employees? I was told 2 meetings ago that it's not acceptable.
We have, to my recollection, we have never used an in-house polygraph examiner for the hiring of police or firefighters. It's always been an outside agency. And we feel it's been a good barometer or meter of the character of the people we're trying to hire.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? City Manager?
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to finance, and I will turn that over to Tom Trozine.
Thank you. As the city council recalled, within the past 6 months, the finance department has gone through a little bit of change as far as employment. We've lost 2 employees due to retirement with over 50 years of experience. With that change comes new opportunities with new staff, and we're excited for this new beginning. During 2016, I think Assistant City Manager Kopp had mentioned before that we had started looking at business process reviews for all of our applications that are provided. We'll continue that in 2017, and we're looking forward to getting those reports from SunGuard HT regarding the financial applications and stuff, those reviews. So between those reviews and new staff with their new perspectives, we're excited to take a look and hopefully be able to improve our operations and offer better services to both the residents of Elmhurst and our internal customers, other city staff and departments. Also in 2017, we'll pursue the city's strategic plan regarding finance. We'll continue to look at financial trend analysis, and we'll do contingency studies and plans if for some reason some of our revenue sources change due to possibly state changes, allocations, things like that. So as I mentioned before, the retirements, I'll just go through some of the highlights in the budget. More of our 17 budget is a decrease, but again, based on what I mentioned earlier with two long-term employees retiring. So if you look at salaries in budget 2016 versus estimated, you see that we're way over budget in both full-time wages and sick payout, and then benefits. And that's, again, due to those final year retirement payouts that we need to do for accrued vacation and sick time. Those are why we really are over budget. But again, decreasing in 17 compared to budgeted 16. You'll notice banking expenses, line item 3005, showing a significant decrease in 17. Over this past year, the Finance Committee, we've looked at a lot of our banking fees and especially focusing on credit card charges. You know, should we pass on those fees to residents and stuff? That was decided at this time to hold off, but through that analysis and study, we determined that our allocation wasn't appropriate. So you'll see in the MUF, well, we have already reviewed that, but in the MUF fund for water and sewer, those banking fees increase because of the credit card volume for those charges and stuff. And the alternative is this side reduced. You know, a lot of the vehicle stickers, you know, individuals that purchase their vehicle stickers and stuff, but we changed that allocation. That's why that decrease. Line item 3092, we had no budget, but there was for contract staffing, and that again goes back to losing two key employees, trying to get through that transition phase. We did include $10,000 in the next 2 years' budget, just as a fallback in case we have projects that come up that we may need additional staffing. Minor equipment, the estimate is a little over budget. We did have to buy a new mail machine, you know, for the finance. And then we have a little bump up in conferences, seminars, and training and stuff, going back to new staff, actually looking at additional training and stuff because of losing all the experience. So, welcome any questions.
Any questions for our finance department? Alderman Dunn.
Yes, Director Trezine, you mentioned the SunGuard study for business processes. Is that in the HR budget or is that in the finance budget?
It's in the HR budget, but again, we're going through it and stuff, so we're looking forward to, you know, reviewing all those applications to see it. Hopefully we'll be able to improve our operations with it, but that's allocated.
Alderman Bram.
Thank you. Mr. Trezine, you just mentioned a little bit ago about why some of these line items, the total has increased, and one of the things you mentioned was sick payout as one of the items. I was just wondering, and I don't know if it's been in our past study or not, but if you could speak to the fact about sick payout, what our policy at Elmhurst is today. Have we reviewed it lately? And if not, should we review it for new employees?
Sure, the sick payout it is actually language included in all of our contracts with our police, fire, and public works staff. And then there is a policy for the management staff also that follows. So as you work through, you accrue sick time 1 day a month, so 12 days a year. If you work for the city for over 20 years, if you leave employment, you can get paid out up to 90 days of that sick time. We do, once you hit the 90 days, you actually then get an annual payout also, but again, this big bump is for those employees that retire that get paid out the sick accrual.
Follow-up to that would be, I don't know if it has been studied, but I know on the private side, rolling over sick days and vacation time, I know at least in my sector, has been eliminated years back. Is that something that the city has recently studied about for new employees? I'm not talking about those who are here today, but for new employees to change that policy where either you can't roll over days or it's less than the up to 90 days that we have, as you just stated, to date?
We have not reviewed that in my tenure. It's part of the compensation package, as you said, for those employees who are here now. I mentioned before that we have changed our hiring model a little bit to help bring down costs, because obviously employees are our largest expense here at the city. So I think we've made some positive changes to help with that as we move forward.
Okay, and obviously, this is not something that can be called a circle back, but I guess I just wanted to have a better understanding what our policy is today, and I guess as a request and maybe upcoming a formal recommendation of maybe we do a deeper dive for new employees and look at competitively what do other communities do from, I get the union side, but from the union as well as administrative side to do a one-to-one comparison and see how we sit with that versus others. Thanks.
Any other questions? All and done.
Council passed a policy this year for part-time PTO. Do you have a rough estimate as to the impact of this year's budget on that policy versus when we didn't have that?
We'd have to get back to you with that number.
Okay. Just a ballpark estimate.
Any other questions? Okay, let's move on.
Thank you. Next is the claims budget, which I will also defer to Director Trozine. That would be page 158.
And as City Manager Grabowski mentioned, the two line items basically are auto and general liability. We look at experience really to come up with these budgets, so nothing really, it's really just an estimate based on experience.
Questions? Okay, let's move on.
Next would be the senior services, human services, which includes senior services, page 159. If I can break down just a few of the items on there. The first one, 6006, is our Meals on Wheels subsidy that we have. Next is the disabled taxi subsidy, as we see that remains pretty consistent. We did go over a little bit this year, and so we're bumping it up just a bit. And the next one is the senior services, which are housed in City Hall. We consider that very valuable and really helps a lot of the population here. And they relate mainly to the finance department in talking about how many residents they serve annually, and so we'll get that report shortly. Next is the senior taxi subsidy. I believe we had some significant conversation about this last budget year, and we're looking to carry over the dollars that were allocated for possible move to the Ride DuPage. We did not get a chance to study that this year. We intend to do that next year to see if that's something that would better benefit the residents in Elmhurst as opposed to the program that we have in place now. And then the last item that I'll talk about is the Youth Commission. They have really regrouped. The mayor has made appointments to that, and they are a very active group now. They have a program coming up at the end of the month with Chris Herron, and they have requested the same amount as last year so that they can continue their progress in what they're doing.
Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mayor. So 6006, it's listed as a Senior Citizen Council grant, and you're saying that's the Meals on Wheels program?
That's correct.
So could you just go into that a little bit, explain that program? I've heard of it, I'm not that familiar with it.
I mean, it's really just funding this organization that has that service. So there's, again, I think up to at least one meal a day where seniors can sign up and they'll actually have a meal delivered to their home from this group, so they organize it.
Elmhurst residents, so
Correct.
it's specific to Elmhurst
Correct.
residents. So it's not bringing people in from out of town and it's simply us giving, and that 32,000, that doesn't cover the whole cost, does it? Or is-
I don't believe so, no. I mean, that's just a part of the funding and stuff that there's a couple of different, I think it's part of the home repair program also, and then the Meals on Wheels. And again, it's where they actually deliver a meal to a senior at their home.
So it's a grant from the city of Elmhurst to this program that provides a service to a resident of Elmhurst, senior residents of Elmhurst. Doesn't bring people into town, it's just helping our own seniors.
Correct.
And is that subject to any council or committee oversight? Meaning, before we cut the check for 32,000, does it go through committee?
Not this past year,
It is not.
Has it traditionally?
not that I know of.
Okay, thank you.
Is Tom's microphone working? Oh, okay. Alderman Palomsky.
Just additional clarification, is this the program that is overseen by Metropolitan Family Services, and that we didn't come up with this number of 32, but we were given that number of, that's the amount for Elmhurst?
The 32,000 is paid to the DuPage Senior Citizens Council,
Okay.
and the 66,000 is the Metropolitan
Okay.
Family Services.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Bram, then I'll go back to Alderman Healy.
Thank you. In regards to line item 6049, the seniors taxi subsidy, I guess I'd like to make this a circle back. I'm curious to find out on if we haven't explored Ride DuPage, and Ride DuPage seems to be, at least I'm making the assumption that the 85,000 allocated for 2017 is cheaper than what we've been doing for the taxi subsidy, that why wouldn't we at this time at least allocate the greater amount in case we don't do Ride DuPage again, and we're seeing a history of, 110,000 last year, why wouldn't 2017 be allocated for the same amount in case we end up going through the full fiscal or most of the fiscal year, not changing over to Ride DuPage? Because I think the change over to Ride DuPage will be significant in regards to the length, the time frame it would take. So I rather see the budget item of 110 versus the 85 to accommodate the taxi subsidy.
Tom and I were just talking that we think that 110 is maybe overestimated right now, and so what we would do is carry over enough where it would be 135 again for 2017. I believe that's what you were asking, yes?
If that is the case, then
Yes.
that would suffice, yes.
Yeah, so we will carry over and it will be 135 in fiscal year 2017.
So I'm
135,000, excuse me.
understood, but that would be an overestimation of $50,000 in that line item, right? If you're saying that 2016 estimated of 110, or you're saying the budget? Which one was?
The estimated, if we would have completed the project with the 50,000, the estimate would have been probably 135. So the estimate's under, but we will carry over all 50. So the estimate, really, the actual for the year will turn out to be the 85 roughly, 75 to 85.
Got you.
So
Okay.
Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mayor. Follow-up question to Alderman Palomsky. So the 66,000 in line 6048 Seniors Assistance Program, that's a grant to the Metropolitan Family Services? Is that correct?
That is our portion of having their employees in City Hall. So we pay them directly, and they have employees here for part of the week to help Elmhurst residents through issues.
Okay. So, and is that subject to any committee oversight?
That has not gone to committee either.
Okay, and it's not doing anything to draw seniors into Elmhurst, it's just a program that helps Elmhurst senior citizens?
Correct.
Thank you.
Additional comments? City Manager, I'm going to take a moment just to go over the schedule, because it's 5 to 10. And just want to get an idea, I know we had maybe a little room in our schedule. Let's just say we don't finish tonight. I know on the detailed budget schedule that was published, it has circle back on the 28th. I know we're supposed to have this, by state law, I think we're supposed to have this approved by the end of the year, right?
That's correct.
So let's just say hypothetically, we don't. I'm trying to think if we've done this in the past. Have we done it in the past where we wrap up items and have circle back on the same day and then bleed that over into the next meeting as well?
We could do that. I think we'll be ready for the circle backs that have been identified so far on the 28th. If there are circle backs on the 28th, we may have to dig up some more information.
I'm just gonna, I want to play this out just to make sure we don't run out of time. If we have, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, what staff's plan would have been, is to complete circle backs on the 28th. Would it be to vote on a budget on the 5th?
That is certainly up to the council.
Well, I
whether
just
it's
mean,
the-
was that, if things went swimmingly from now until the end of this meeting, in theory, we could vote on the budget as early as the 5th? Or
Correct.
was it the intention to always vote on the budget on the 19th, is my question?
We're always ready for that first meeting. I think we have seen that where it's been the second meeting in December. But just so you know, we do have the public hearing scheduled for the 5th, which has no bearing on whether or not the council votes on the budget that same night, but we do have to have the public hearing before the council can vote on it, and it can be on the same night.
Public hearing can be on the same night. Can public hearing be on a committee night? Would we have to?
Be announced.
I think we've already published for it on the 5th, which is okay. We've done it
Okay,
that
so
way.
we can do it either way.
We've done it where we've had it, the public hearing on the first December meeting,
So
and
our
then
review of the
approved
budget
it.
doesn't have to be complete to hold the public hearing.
Correct.
Okay.
Should have been tonight.
All right. Is there a logical break coming up, or?
I think if we can get through health services, and then maybe, or maybe to letter K, Tom is suggesting to me.
Really, Tom?
They're pretty small after this.
I would go up to the
It
capital.
gets us through general fund.
Yeah.
Okay, but I just don't see swallowing the capital improvement fund or TIF tonight or anything.
Right.
Correct.
We would agree.
Okay, so what's our goal for right now? You want to go through K?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
H is health services, and that covers our ambulance service contract with Metro, and also our mosquito abatement, which is our contract spraying with Clark.
Any questions or comments on that? Alderman Healy?
Thank you, Mayor. 3001 ambulance service, that's what we pay Superior for the service they provide, correct?
Yes.
So given that we're going to be looking at how we provide medical services, do we want to talk about this budget item? You know, understanding there may be no changes, or there might be significant changes, or am I way out ahead of things?
I don't know that we're far enough along to change this line item.
Okay. Understood, and I don't have an answer, by the way, but I'm just thinking if over the next month or two, we're going to start the process of looking at how we provide emergency response services, particularly medical, on the medical side, do we want to do something on the budget side? But
I think it's a big unknown coming out of that committee.
Yep.
That I think we're prepared for it, but to Alderman Palomski's point earlier in the night, it's kind of a planning doc. It can change.
Yep.
I think that's a big one where I would hate to anticipate one way or the other.
Yep.
So, any other questions? Alderman Bram?
Yeah, in regards to Alderman Healy's point, earlier on in the budget conversation, I made a circle back for advanced life support. So if we're talking about that from the other line item perspective, I think actually it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to touch base on this. But my question was in regards to the contract, do we have a time frame on when we need to renew the contract with Superior?
We just renewed that last year, I believe, and I think it was a 5-year term.
5 years?
Do you remember? 5 years? I think it was a 5-year term.
Is this the total amount of their services, the cost, or is this what's after subsidizing?
That's after the subsidy, after they
after-
bill and collect, and we go through the true-up.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, let's go.
Next is contingent, and I wish Alderman York were here. We did bring that down to 0. I know in the past we've talked about that, so Tom and I talked, and we're eliminating that from the budget. After that is cable television.
Wait.
Sorry.
You can't, we usually, this is like a watershed moment. We usually talk about that contingency for 25 minutes, if not more. Let's not, Alderman Levin, you good, or do you want to?
Well, did this come out of Finance Committee as a recommendation, or is just staff recommending it, or is it a York initiative?
I think Tom Trezine's been waiting 23 years to eliminate this line item, and now that Marilyn's gone,
Don't you want to phase it out like 5,000 a year over the next 10 years?
Right, let's
Do we have a contingency for the contingency?
yeah. City manager, any additional details as to why we're removing it?
We were able to take some of the things that have gone in there and plug them into some other areas.
Better planning elsewhere, Alderman Levin.
Okay, I don't want to hear about any contingency needs later on then, okay.
Okay, $130 million budget flying without $50 million of cushion.
Concerned about the contingency.
No tipping. Yeah.
Okay, on to cable television.
Cable television is the services that are provided to record and broadcast various meetings throughout the city. We continue to contract that out, and very happy with the service that we're provided.
Okay, any questions on our cable? Alderman Bram?
Yeah, does this encompass anything with regards to cable, the history, I don't know, cable programs that are on there, city council meetings, et cetera, et cetera?
It's all media services. It doesn't include the host of the show necessarily, but it's all the technical.
Oh, it's the guys with the
requirements.
cameras.
Correct.
Does that answer your question, Alderman Bram?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on cable services? On to the last item of the night.
And I will turn that over to Tom Trozine, interfund transfers, which is page 166.
And again, 2 line items, transfers. One transfer from the general fund to our debt service fund. You can see that 2017 will be that last debt service payment. That was the allocation for the garage, the construction of the garage. The other line item, transfer to stormwater, deals with land acquisition. The $2 million was because of $1 million carry forward the year before, and then the reduction down to $500,000 the next 2 years.
What's our carryover? Are we carrying it? We're going to carry over $500,000 about?
The intent is to carry over about 1.1 million, so we had about $900,000 in land acquisition for the Washington properties, and so there'll be $1.1 million left over, so the budget for next year will actually be $1.6 million.
Okay, good to know. Any additional comments or questions? All right, City Manager Grabowski, that gets us to K, which is what we hope to do.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments before we get started? So we are going to, we're going to continue budget conversation. Pardon me. Continue budget conversation to the 28th, which is a week from tonight, at which time we will complete this. Whether or not we get to circle back, we'll see. Okay? I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Alderman Deuter, second by Alderman Mulliner. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody. We're adjourned.